Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Rae Show. I'm out in the torch shop making another marble, and I'm going to do 3 different canes. So I'll probably edit some of that stuff out so you just get the gist of what these canes are. And I'm going to work with some layered coloring, which I haven't done this particular idea before, so got a bunch of ideas going. We've got to get into it. I'm going to start out doing a real simple little flat cane. Just get a little gather going and flatten it out. So I've got just a lot of different layers in my mind. We'll see, put this together and see what we come up with. But most of these canes are going to be just real small, so I only need a relatively small amount of each one. So a little offset lollipop. And I've got some experimental green. I'm going to use this in the center. I'm going to use it in this cane. This color is bright in the flame. A little dollop of color. Squeeze this out. Alright, now we need to coat this with some clear. So we want to completely encase this. It's pretty well flattened down. We still want to be careful around these edges. Make sure we're all covered up there. And build up a little bit of clear on top of that. It can look a little messy at this point. Okay, I'll just use that rod as my handle. So this is just going to be a flat cane. I'm not going to twist it. So I'm going to draw this out to begin with. got enough material here. I'm going to kind of do this in sections, so I'm going to draw this out. That loose, and could just save this little portion here for later, but I'll do one more pole. Okay, well, I got a bunch of flat cane of all sorts of different dimensions. It's okay. Okay, that's one cane. All right, I'm going to move on to another idea I've got. I haven't used mica for a while. Mica is kind of an interesting ingredient. I've got some that's it's a pink mica. I'm going to turn this off for a sec. It's a pink mica, as it happens to be. And I tried to crush this down. I know there's still some chunks in there. We'll see what I can pick up here. I'm going to multitask here. I should have cleaned off this end. So a couple different things you could do here. You could flatten out a piece like I just did. I'm going to try just rolling it in here and see what I can pick up. Get some pretty good and hot material. Alright, so now, before just throwing that in the fire, I'm going to try and coat this with clear. I'm going to avoid trying to run this right up against one clear layer against another. So let this kind of outgas. And go for some big flame here. And this will also give some dimension structure to it. So once that's heated up pretty good, I'll come back in and fill in these areas in between. Okay. Oh, this is looking pretty good. Attach a handle here and cut off this end. Clean this off. Okay, now this little jewel, I'll try and pull some cane out of this. Kind of chunky stuff in there. All right, another crazy cane. We got one more to make. Okay, so this last one a little different, a little tricky for me. I'm going to try and make some concentric layers of color. I'm going to start out with a dark brown. This is chocolate. Alright, so we're going to stripe on some color here. Just holding our clear rod just below the flame. And we'll heat that in. And then we've got some red. I have to like heat this in and let this cool it down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to stripe some color on here. So when this pulls out and it's in the marble, I'm not sure if that chocolate is going to really affect this red layer or not. A lot of these colors, by the time you pull them out and incorporate them in a project, the saturation may not be 100%, so you'll see the underlying colors. So I'm hoping that will kind of be the case here. And get this heated in. And then we're going to add clear on top of this. So kind of a sleeve type of element that just doing it as a one-off on the torch. And these clear layers in the final piece give some separation between the different lines. And I'm going to put this into the marble. And hopefully that got everything. So kind of heating it up in the middle and allowing any of that air that's between those clear lines to kind of push out the end. Add this as a handle. Gently pull this out, stretch it a little bit. Come back into that heat on that end of the color. This again may gonna get a little too long to do in one stretch. I need to pull out a bit of a stinger for my next operation. Don't need very much, but some of these colors are hard to identify if you have just a random little piece of it. So I like to have a section of stringer material, whatever, that's labeled that I know for sure what it is. So I try and keep stringers together with a labeled piece of rod, but sometimes they get a bit lost. All right, so we got our main rod now. We're going to get a gather going on here, flatten off the end, and work on an implosion or compression if people prefer. In the world of solid glass, when it's on a bubble, people call it a compression or an implosion. See, I can't even keep it straight. So you call it whatever you want. So again, need to get a little gather, and we're going to flatten the end here in a minute. I'm going to pluck out any little specks I see in there. Okay, we don't want to go too far with this. trying to visualize how much I need for this initial construction element. You can't see it either way. Right. It's already kind of off center. Trying to mess around looking at the camera angles. Okay, now we got kind of a little face here to decorate. All right, so I just need a few dots. That's probably enough. So a lot of these little steps, like this right here, is not something I've really done before exactly. So, or at least not in a marble. I want a pretty intense flame around that rim. And to get it started, we'll do some pressing. So I'm kind of catching that edge, but also skimming across the face. And as it starts to get hot, and I transition the angle, get a little bit more angle and a little bit more focused on that center. Start seeing a little show there. Very gently drop this onto the arbor plate. Don't really want to disturb the pattern there that's developing. Now that we've kind of established this element in the core, I'm going to kind of run with this. Give it a minute to set up. I'm going to do this in stages so I don't get too far out of control. Going to drag this out, and guess what? We're getting to our cone shape. Imagine that. And kind of tease this out a little bit. Alright, we'll have other opportunities to kind of sharpen that up. So, now we got all this cane that I've put together. This is where we're going to lay it down in here. So this is the green. I'm just kind of giving it one or two rotations back and forth, kind of. Okay, so I only used just a tiny bit of that material that I pulled out. Heat that stuff in. Alright, rusty red. Now this is just round. So twisting is not really going to buy us anything. Trying to do some kind of branching. A little bit fizzy there. So this is a series of layers, and each one obscures to a degree what's behind it. Work both ends, the pointy end and the wide end, and then kind of fill in between those two. Work all that in. All right. Now we got our mica cane. I think I might lose this end. Now this material I'm going to kind of lay down a little differently. Yeah, and it's a little unstable, and like that it broke apart. I'm building up a fair bit of this stuff. I'll let that sink in. Coax it along a bit. Okay. Next layer. A lot of layers here. Got some blue-green frit. And pull out this tip. Before we go to our frit. We got a few bubbly things from that mica layer, but that's cool. A lot of things laying around here. So this blue-green frit, we'll just leave it an open, loose, lacy pattern. Let it melt in and create its own little microcosm. Alright, next step is going to be some dark cobalt backing. We'll let that base firm up a little minute. Along this wide edge and define where that line is going to be. I'm just going to run around laying right up against that previous pass. Sometimes I leave a gap and come back and fill it in, but the only trouble with doing it this way is you get out towards the tip and it can just, the base can get just too hot. When it's a wide surface and you're running kind of slowly, it has a chance to cool off on the back side. And you have to kind of get to that right position in the flame where the flame is melting the stringer but not putting too much heat down on the base, but you need it to be melting it to the base. So it's got to be kind of right in the zone. So I just broke away from that edge. Plus, doing this where you leave a little gap, it's less stressful trying to hit that edge. Okay, I'll try and find where I started skipping. Alright, let's see what we've got here. And add a little bit more at the very tip so it's closed in. Okay. Whew, well, making some good progress here. So on this back side, I'm going to try and do some gold fume first. Trying to introduce that slowly and get it warmed up. Okay, well, I don't know if it looks like too much gold on there, but got some on there. Start wrapping the back side with clear, just bulking this up. It could be any colored glass, but colored glass is more expensive than clear, so good opportunity to just use some clear. We're just trying to get some bulk, and actually it gives some optical effect on the back pattern. So the lines on the back are floating over this base. Well, I hope everyone is doing well out there. We sure appreciate you stopping by to check out our video. Most of these marbles wind up on eBay after they're done being photographed and video for this construction is done. And we welcome our sponsor, Epicwater filters. We've got a link in the description underneath the video. You follow that link. You can check out their water filtration products. We've got the pitcher in our refrigerator that we really enjoy, being able to just grab some cold, clear, clean water. Get up towards this wide end, and we want to get up right on that edge, but try to avoid putting clear glass over the edge. And after this first pass, we're going to squeeze this edge here, flatten it down. So we really don't need much glass up here on this edge. I literally push that clear glass away from that edge. It winds up being just a real tight seal up against that. And we come down to the pointy end. And we want to push that glass again back away from that color. And hopefully we keep a little bit of exposure there on the color glass on the very end. Helps maintain that deep vortex effect. So at this point, we're just trying to bulk it up and filling in between the two ends. and creating little valleys that I go back and fill in. Just keep throwing on some glass, trying to avoid trapping bubbles in there. And we'll get to where we can round this out, make it smooth. A little controlled chaos going on here. We'll start heating this lens side and see if we can't bulk that up a little bit. Okay, that's close enough. And keep this rolling on center. Yeah, we've got some stringers for the back side. We'll start off with some Silver Strike 5. Start out on this transition line. Another Every point that we try and sort of define that edge. Okay, and then we'll do some purple amber. This is double purple amber. Trying to put this down with some intensity to chase away some of that haze on the side that's being laid down anyway. Okay, and last but not least, some more unobtanium. This is just a really nice combination, I think. This stringer is kind of thin, and my space that I left is pretty wide, so I'm kind of pushing it in to condense it in as I go. Okay, now let's see if I can get a good hot oxidizing flame here. And heat this up to where I can chase the haze away from that purple amber. This gets pretty wibbly wobbly. Usually I'm going to wind up going to the smaller flame and try and burn out that fume or the haze on the purple amber. It'll just get overheated, the whole piece. Yeah, it just gets out of control. It's chasing it out pretty good right now. This gets super hot in the camera. It's a little hard to see because it's pretty blown out. I'll let this core settle down for a second. Just has to really sit in that fire to heat up enough. And through the rest of the process, it'll haze over again multiple times probably before it's done, but not the deep haze that it starts out with. So from here on out, it kind of is what it is. Get up this whole thing and get it back on center. Okay, now we're up to the raking stage. I'll make sure our base is settled down so we don't, it's already a little wonky. A little wonky is fine. Kind of run up to the other part that's been raked and grab a hold of it a bit. Blend these two layers together. Okay, then we settle on this end. Pull it out. And hopefully that's pretty close to defining our center point. And this first pass always seems to tear it loose a little bit. So come back and squeeze that together. Okay, now we're cooking it in. You'll notice that. I don't know if that's a tear there or not. Get all those mixed up lines to really fuse together at this step. You want to get everything to really settle in, work its way together, smooth out the surface. Try and get things on center. Come out of the fire and let this settle in. Okay, now we need to attach a puntee. Now this area where I'm heating right now has got a lot of spillover fume and surprising amount of interaction with the colors I put on that backside. When you're cooking off that haze on a purple amber, you're actually blowing loose some of the metals that are in that glass. And they're going to sneak around and attach to wherever the glass is receptive, where it's the right temperature. So that's kind of the first order of business, is try and burn out that glass, and then we'll go back and skim off what we can later. So I'm trying to get this clear glass to build up and push out that circumference. It's kind of happening in slow motion, but it's going to expand the diameter of the marble. If you kind of time lapse this, you can see it's way whiter now than it was to start with. And we actually build up a little bit of a bulge of clear on the lens side. Well, I'm getting pretty warm now. Started off fairly cool in the shop. The day before we were down to 33 degrees in the morning. I don't know if you quite saw that, but sometimes when I leave it in the flame, when I turn off the red max, it'll drop some soot on the surface of the glass. And a lot of people actually use that soot pretty heavily as kind of an annealing step in blown work in particular. But anyway, that carbon just burns right off. Doesn't seem to affect the glass in any negative way. All right, we've got enough glass, I think, there. So now we'll heat up this narrow section. Cut it down in the roller. You pull it just gently and just a little bit. You're going to thin it out. Just don't go pulling it, stretching it way out. Okay, now we're going to start ripping off the surface here. We're just trying to go to our happy place. Let the glass do its thing, take its time. So we're stripping away some glass that may be impacted with the fume and the condensing. There'll still be some remnants of altered glass even after doing all this. This will help make a cleaner lens and define that edge. I don't really see a lot of frit spilled over, but sometimes that frit is outside of the, trying to color outside of the lines. Okay, I think I've gone all around. This tail end, we pull this out and try and kind of gently heat it, tuck it in. This is just trying to take off a thin outer layer. I've got the tweezers kind of flat to the surface. I was trying to look for where I started. Can't really tell. Change up our angle and keep going around. Okay, that should be pretty good. When we heat this up, this next phase, if there's areas that I missed or something, it'll show up when the glass is super bright, super hot. So I'm trying to hold this up at a bit of an angle. Try and do slow rotations when you can to let as much heat soak in. And then once it gets pretty warm, I try and spin this. So now we got quite the pill shape. And we can use our L marver to kind of square things up. It's better to start with a nice barrel, clean barrel shape. Okay, I'm going to dip into our oversized marble mold. Come into our other 2-inch mold. That'll give us an approximation of a roughed in shape. Okay, we can do a punchy transfer. To kind of keep rotating no matter what orientation you're in. Again, real slow rotations is while you can. get that heat to push in. Starts throwing off some serious heat. You know it's getting pretty toasty. Okay, this is pretty hot. Run it in marble molds. There's a little bit of force there while we had that much heat build up. I really appreciate anybody that's hanging out, watching these videos. If you're here right now, thank you so much. We're just about getting her done. Got some final shaping to do. Got any questions or comments, please drop them down below. We've got our shop below the video with the graphics that Rae has designed for printing on shirts or mugs or what have you. It seems like it's pretty well rounded up, but there's still, start watching the reflections, and there's still a lot of wiggling around going on around that transition between the color and the clear. So kind of back and forth. Reheat, put the marble mold quickly. It's riding on the rim of the marble mold. So you have to kind of change up your angles in order to get the full coverage. So you come in kind of level and then come up high, back and forth between that puntee being up high and being down kind of level. And we start transitioning between trying to get a large bulk of the marble to move to just working on the surface. The base of the marble is just fine. So we can lose some heat. Mostly, up to this point, you want to go in and out of marble mold quickly so you don't lose too much heat. But once you get pretty close to the final shape, then it's okay. Now, when we reheat, this is really just about flame polishing, not really shaping anymore. Okay, out of the heat and let that cool down, just keep rotating. And while that's cooling down a little bit, I'm going to get my next puntee ready, my last puntee. Get kind of a blunt end there. Okay. And at this point, we're kind of on the clock to get this finished up before that puntee gets tired and breaks loose on its own. Very gentle motions, don't bump anything. And trying to dig out any remnants of that attachment. And then we can come into this face. Since we, especially after digging that out a little bit, we're going to have a little bit of a flat spot on the top, so we're going to angle this up. Now the clear heats up a lot faster than the color, so it doesn't take long. Get a good glow going on there. Come into our marble mold after a brief pause. And then on the back side it's solid. So the glass at this point, it wants to form a ball. So you kind of work with it, shaping up. Again, come in on this back side where it's marble is solid. Come up vertical. Again, at this point we can lose some heat. And now we're just up to some flame polish. So it's a little tricky with the clear glass to get enough, to get full flame polish. I got some rings out here on the very front face. So you want to flash it and get it all smoothed out, then come out of the flame, and you can kind of watch it at this point, see the reflection. I like this one lamp. I've got this swing arm lamp. Makes a nice wide light pattern. So you get down to this final stage, and it's more important to be smooth than accurately round. I think we're about there. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how these different little canes that I made, how they work out. That little spray in the center is a lot tighter and smaller than I hoped it would. I'll do that again. I'll make that dot pattern out a wider pattern. Didn't really think about it that way. So one of those things that didn't turn out with what was in my head, but it's a cool marble. Okay, I think it's cooled off enough to introduce it to our resting spot here. Just kind of hover it over the marble mold to make sure it doesn't drop and roll around the table. Looking good. Yay, very cool. Very pleased with that marble result. Very pleased for you guys to hang out watching these videos. It's always a crazy adventure. That's what we want. That's what I want. Hopefully you enjoy following along. into the kiln she goes. Alrighty guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Take care of yourselves. Take care of everybody around you and be kind to those you run into every day. And we'll be seeing you on another adventure another day. But check out this marble that I just made right now.